There are a few financial moves that are surprisingly easy while we're still working, but surprisingly difficult once we're not working. And if you miss that window of opportunity, it could cost you thousands. So today I want to walk through what to do in that last year before you retire, because this is the window where small decisions can make a huge difference. And I don't want us Gen Xers to realize it when it's too late. So let's not leave anything on the table, okay? First on the list is use your employer health care while you still can. And this is a huge one. Maybe you've already got your deductibles covered for the year. So before leaving work, this is the time to think about getting those elective procedures done, or those things that you've been putting off way too long. Maybe get that dental work done, your eye exams. Because once you quit, you may find that COBRA coverage is just way too expensive. And then your options are, ACA coverage, because, Medicare, it doesn't kick in until 65. Some of the things that you're used to your health insurance, covering may not be covered once you leave. Another health-related perk that you need to pay attention to is to use your FSA money. I'm not talking about HSA, but if you have a flexible spending account where you work, most of those funds, they're use it or lose it. So before you leave, use those funds to maybe fill some prescriptions or stock up your over-the-counter meds or schedule some appointments. Now, if you have an HSA through your employer, now you can roll that over to an HSA plan at a brokerage like Fidelity or Schwab, and you can invest it in the market through there, probably giving you a lot more investment choices than what you had at your place of employment. Now remember, you can contribute to that HSA all the way up until you get on Medicare, just as long as you have a qualified health insurance plan during that time. And another thing is that with an HSA, you don't have to have earned income in order to contribute, because with a Roth IRA, you do have to have earned income, but with an HSA, you don't. Just check into all of the stipulations regarding that before you do it. Now, the second thing you want to do that year before you retire is to time your exit perfectly. Now, this is one of those areas that by being off just 1 week, maybe even just 1 day, could cost you thousands. Do you get an annual bonus every year in November? If so, find out if you need to be employed all the way through that time in order to be eligible for that. And some companies, they won't pay you, even if you quit 1 day early. Also, time your exit around your paid time off rules, depending on when they reset, whether it's, on the calendar year or on your anniversary. And this can vary a lot. Now, there are some companies that will pay out unused PTO. Others, it's a use it or lose it with that as well. So your strategy is, if it's a use it or lose it scenario, then if you can, try to use it all up before you leave. If they'll pay it out anyway, then let it accumulate. Be sure to let your PTO fully reset. Leaving too early before your vacation resets could cost you thousands of dollars. Number 3 is don't leave money behind. Now, if your employer contributes a matching amount to your retirement plan, let's say, for example, they contribute a lump sum amount every month, then make sure to time your exit after that hits your account. Also check into, does your employer go by a vesting schedule? Very important. Leaving too early can mean giving up money that you've already earned. It's worth checking these things out in your employee handbook, or a nonchalant discussion with your HR person. I recently heard of someone who unknowingly walked away from almost $5,000 just because they didn't wait a couple more months. Now, what's interesting about these is that none of them feel extremely urgent, especially while we're working. It's just a part of our routine. But once we stop working, once that paycheck stops, every single one of these becomes harder or more expensive. So, okay, what else do we need to do? The fourth thing to put on your 1 year out to-do list is to set up credit before that paycheck disappears. And this is something that people may not realize or you may forget, but banks, they love W-2 income. And once you retire, approval becomes harder. Now, I'm not telling you to take on extra debt. That's not what I'm saying. It's about keeping your options open for the future when acquiring credit becomes more difficult. One of those things you might consider is opening a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. And even if you never touch it, having a HELOC, that creates this safety valve because it's there and it can help you with unexpected home repairs, replacing your roof or your HVAC. Then you don't have to take large withdrawals from your 401k to pay for those things. Might even be a market downturn right when the HVAC system goes out, and that's not when you want to be taking a lot of money out of those investments. So the HELOC is just a backup plan. A second thing to consider is applying for another credit card that has a good, limit on it, because it's about options and flexibility, especially if you just only have maybe one card currently, because they can close those cards with little notice. So just getting an extra one, it can be helpful, even if you just put it in a drawer somewhere. And of course it can help if an emergency comes up, but it's also just like having a free extra insurance policy. Now, my mom, she's 86 years old, and she uses 2 different credit cards for most of her everyday expenses. It's actually how I do, her shopping for her and, purchasing things for her. So you don't want to find yourself in your 80s wishing you had another card. And then this one I want to throw in here as well, a car loan. Now, if you expect to replace your vehicle in the next few years, doing it before you retire could make the financing simpler, because lenders, they're going to look at your stable income, employment history. All of these things, they change once you retire. And you don't necessarily want a high mileage car that's costing you a lot in repairs and not very dependable. You don't want that going into retirement. Now, the 5th thing you want to think about before retiring is to maybe build that Social Security income bridge. Now, if you retire at 62, you might want the option to delay Social Security. Now, if you retire earlier than 62, you have no option rather than to wait on Social Security. So you're going to need other money to live off of until then anyway. Now, that could be your Roth IRA, it could be your 401k, but even better would be a cash cushion, preferably, in a high yield savings account or a taxable brokerage account, something that you can get your hands on very easily. Because this does a few things. It gives your 401k, your IRAs, more time to grow. It gives you the option to delay Social Security a little longer. Just think of it as buying a little more time for your investments to grow a little more. Now, here's just a few ways that you could accumulate that cash cushion in the year before you quit your job. Maybe the money that you're currently putting in your retirement accounts, maybe you shift some of that, maybe all of it, but maybe you shift some of that into your cash account. Maybe you earn extra money through a side gig or selling stuff. Take that bonus that you're going to get, that unpaid vacation time, maybe even a tax refund, all of it, just funnel it straight into that cash account. Now, if you save enough to fund 1 to 3 years of living expenses, you'll be able to hold out for a bigger Social Security check. Or you avoid having to pull money out of your investments. You avoid the sequence of returns risk. It just creates a lot of flexibility. And I think that this is a very smart Gen X strategy. The sixth thing you want to do within that year is to test your retirement budget. At least 3 to 6 months before your planned retirement. Just go on and try to live off of that retirement amount. And if you don't know exactly what that amount is, then this is a really crucial time to get to working on that. Doing a trial run on your expected monthly amount, that can reveal surprises early. It's a lot easier to adjust your lifestyle while you're still getting paychecks than after they've already stopped. The seventh thing that you should do the year before you retire is create a do not wait list. Now, this isn't really a financial step, but it's a very important one. Okay, I don't want to get too gloomy here, but it's time for us to start thinking about our 60s and that it could be the last decade before our energy really starts declining, before our health starts to decline. Hopefully not, but if we're thinking realistically, just make a list of the things that are important to you, really important to you, and get them on paper, not just in your head. Now, it could be a bucket list, but it could be something a lot less sensational than that as well. It could be just making more time in your 60s to focus more on your health, or to purposely spend more time with your grandkids. Write it down. Don't let yourself off the hook. If there are things that require more energy that you've always wanted to do and haven't yet, write that on that list. Because, even if in your 70s you still have the energy and the health, we know that with each decade of our lives so far, our priorities, they tend to shift, they tend to change, and we don't know what might be important to us in our 70s versus now. Just actively work on that list now before time races away from you. Now, I just have a couple more just bonus tasks to throw in there. One of those is to work on your ACA strategy. If you're going to retire before Medicare and you don't have another health insurance option and you're going to go with ACA, then your income is going to determine how much you pay for that coverage. And even small decisions like how much money you're going to start withdrawing once you retire, those things can change your premiums dramatically. So take a look at that math now and decide on how you're going to manage your income until you get to Medicare age. And the second little bonus task is to make sure you download everything you need before you retire. And before you clock out for the last time and before you lose access, either download or email yourself, that important information like your pay stubs, some HR documents, account numbers and phone numbers for your 401k plan or any other benefits that you have through that employer. also take the extra step to clean off any of your personal files and your personal information off of your computer, your photos, your music. Be sure to unsubscribe from any personal emails that's coming to your work email address. Now, I know for me, I'm getting closer and closer to that retirement age. And these small decisions, they're important to me as well. Because I know that small decisions, they can affect your life decades down the road. Just like decisions that I made 30 years ago, they affect me today. I don't want to look back today and realize that I missed some opportunities. Because retirement isn't all about having enough money. It's also about making smart decisions before the window closes. Because once you leave work, some of these options, they don't come back. Now, let me know in the comments, what did I forget to mention? Because I know a lot of us, we're thinking about these things. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye.